Welcome to Born or Made, the podcast that dives deep into the heart of success and identity. Are the traits that define us as leaders ingrained from birth, or are they carved out throughout our experiences? Join your host, Anne-Marie LaTulip, as we ask these questions to some of the most insightful and inspiring entrepreneurs of our time. Each episode, we explore their journeys, the decisions that shaped them, and how they've molded their own paths to success. So whether you're an aspiring entrepreneur, a seasoned business owner, or simply curious about the interplay between nature and nurture in professional growth, you're in the right place. Get ready for compelling stories, transformative insights, and a new perspective on what it really takes to make it in the world of entrepreneurship.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Born or Made podcast. I'm your host, Anne-Marie LaTulip, and with me today, I have the lovely Julia Langley. And wait until I tell you about Julia. You guys are going to be so excited. Julia helps speakers and coaches overcome nervousness and fear to give confident, commanding keynotes so that they get big paydays they deserve, land their top clients, and be recognized worldwide for their expertise. With over 15 years as a featured singer for Cirque Du Soleil, she has performed on 20 stages in over 20 different countries and all over 50 states. Julia, I am so happy to welcome you here today.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me on your show.
Yeah, no problem. First off, I want to ask you, I noticed you have a little bit of an accent. Do you mind me asking you where you're from?
Not at all. Not at all. I was born and raised in Alabama.
Ah,
Yeah, my family still lives there. I have spent the last 20 plus years of my life in South Florida. So you'll get Southern, and then every now and then you'll get a little New York accent, a little Midwestern, and a little New York in there. So I like to keep it interesting.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's fun. Sounds very unique. So that's cool. So, all right. So we have to talk about Cirque, and my audience is going to love this. I'd love to geek out about it a little bit, and then we can go on to more professional business things. But this is something that I can't wait to talk to you about. So, tell me, how did you get involved with Cirque in the first place? How did that happen?
Well, it was a journey. It was a journey. I've been a singer. I started singing when I was 2 years old. So that was just part of who I am. Music
Okay.
has been part of my life since a very, very early age. And as I progressed in it, I sang all through high school and then sang in college and did the choruses and everything. I got out and I had a business degree, but it just was not feeding my soul. So I decided to strike out on my own. I auditioned for a show and I got in. And then that's when my music career was born, really and truly, because I put a show together. I started doing industrials, but it just wasn't enough for me.
Mhm.
I had someone I was dating at the time, actually, for a birthday, took me to see a Cirque du Soleil show. And I didn't know anything about it at the time. And I was mesmerized.
Right.
It's like sensory overload for
Which
me.
one was it, if you don't mind me asking?
It was La Nuba
Oh, yeah. Okay.
on Disney.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was just like, I was blown away. And I said, I want to do that. I want to work for them. So I saw an ad for an audition and I auditioned and I won the audition. And the rest is history. Here we are.
Wow. Okay. So
Yeah.
were you stationed or were you touring?
Both. I've done both. And because I've been with them for a really long time. So I first started out in a stationary show that they were doing in Branson, Missouri. And I started there. And then I went from there to a touring company and I toured on a Broadway series tour. I was the understudy in the Broadway show. Then I wound up doing industrials, which is more like what we call corporates, where basically a company or somebody will come in and they hire you to do a one-off show at their venue. And
Oh,
so
interesting.
a lot. Those are, I really like them. They're very hard work, but it got to the point where I really enjoyed doing those because it was like fly in, stay in a nice place, put up the show fast, fly home. So I wasn't on
Right.
the road, the places we stayed were luxurious, with the shows were fun. It knock it out,
Yeah, right, right. Oh,
and so
that's interesting. A lot of people I would bet don't even know that that side exists of Cirque, right? That's
yeah,
really cool.
absolutely. It's an interesting, when you really get over into it and you start seeing all the different levels, different kinds of shows that do different things. There's shows in theater, shows in arenas,
Yeah,
different parts
yeah.
of the company. It's a really it gets complicated. And you're so funny because you were talking in the beginning about, more serious career kind of. This was my job. So
Right.
a serious career, but people don't think about it like that
Oh,
because it's
no, trust me,
me.
I understand. I worked for Sesame Street Live
There
for,
you go.
yeah,
Yeah.
15 years. So I get you.
You
I get you.
understand. Yeah.
And I have actually a Cirque story I would love to share with you. Now, when I listen to podcasts and the host talks about themselves, I kind of it bothers me, but I have to with you because I have to tell you this story, right?
Sure, sure.
So I have a very good friend. His name is Gene Lubis. Do you know him? He's out.
I don't
He's out in
know.
Vegas. He's
Okay.
stationed in Vegas.
Okay.
And so my show was playing there, and I went to see Gene. At the time, he was stage managing for O.
Okay.
And so I went up there and I watched with him and all this stuff. I met a bunch of people. He's like, and he had been telling me for years that I had to be the little girl in pajamas in the stair. So while I was in Vegas, he's like, put a reel together, get all your stuff together and give it to me, and I'll give it to them at Mystere. So I did that, and then they came out to see my show. And then later, like after I got off tour 3 months later, I got a call from them saying, we'd love you to come out to Montreal so we can, audition you. I said,
Right.
awesome. So they sent me a list of requirements that I had to do, for the audition. And everything was fine. It was like play with a balloon or do all, whatever, be a little girl. And then the last one was 20 consecutive back handsprings.
You're
I
like,
was
wait,
like, wait a second. I've seen the show a dozen times. I've never seen her tumble ever. And oh yes, we're consolidating the tracks this year, so she's going to be doing the fast track. And so it did not work out for me.
oh no, yeah, that's humbling.
I was this
Every time.
close. So that's my Cirque story. So yeah,
That's a great story though. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
If I didn't to be the tumbling singer, it probably wouldn't have worked for me. Although I was a gymnast when I was younger, but yeah,
Right. I mean, I could dance, but no back handsprings here.
yeah,
So,
no,
did you ever do Allegria?
no, I did
Okay,
not. No.
that's one of my favorites. I love that.
Yeah, Allegory is a great show.
Yeah, yeah. So, all right. Well, thank you for humoring me and talking going down that road. That was wonderful. So now let's pivot and talk
Okay.
about what you're doing now and sort of how, because are you still performing with Cirque or no more?
Not really anymore. So the answer is no. At
Okay.
this and I tell you what happened because when COVID hit, it was really, of course, at that point, I have to tell you, I've been with Cirque for so long. I was getting to the point in my career where I wanted to do something else too, or I wanted it not to pivot and just change, but to expand what I had been building on for years and years. So really expanding that. When COVID came into play, of course, we were the first to go and the last to come back. I mean, so I got my chapter 11. I actually, Cirque faced some really hard times during that time. They were really, because they have contracts with all these casinos all throughout the world for 10 years plus. So
Oh,
think about the kind of money that's involved in that. So when there's no one going to shows for it, you can't sustain. So they had to file for chapter 11.
oh,
And
no kidding.
yeah, not a lot of people know that, but it's not like it's private, not that.
Wow.
So anyway, I got my chapter 11. I got my layoff. I got my layoff letter in the mail. All of us did.
So
And
have they recovered or are
yeah, they recovered. They got help. They got money put back into the company, and now they have shows touring again.
oh,
But
good, good.
yeah, it's just
That's a shame. Yeah. And I'm sure that happened to a lot of production companies. I would imagine. I
well,
mean,
the holding company that owns Cirque du Soleil is one of I want to say, okay, and I hate to go out on a limb when I'm not 100%, but I'm pretty sure it's the second largest entertainment company next to Feld Entertainment. I
well,
want
yeah.
to say, yeah, Feld's number one, and then the holding company that owns them is the second largest. So they're basically competitors, but they own so many different things. And when when you're that diversified and that leveraged in entertainment, and then there's zero happening, you can imagine what kind of money that we're talking about. So
Yeah.
it was really big, very upsetting deal for a lot of people. For me, as I said, I had already started looking at maybe expanding, doing something, in the same field, but really, it's just growing. What's next?
Yes.
What's
Sure.
next for me? So for me, when that happened, it was kind of like, okay, that's just God up above telling me
Yeah.
time to look around, Jules, time to look around and see where you're going next. And that's what I did. So I used that time
And
to,
so you you before, let's speaking to the name of the show, Born or Made, I believe there's somewhat of a parallel between being a performer and being an entrepreneur. So I'm wondering, had you ever thought of being an entrepreneur prior to starting your business while you were singing? Or
well, I really and truly, by definition, I mean, I kind of was an entrepreneur because although, and it's a very convoluted thing when you work, when I was on tour, I was a W-2 employee, but I was still contracted. So at the end of the day, it's an interesting way how they manage it. So I
right.
technically was a 1099 contracted employee, which is what an entrepreneur is. So you can contract in different ways with different things. So I not only did I do that, but when I was not on the road, I had a coaching business where I was working with people with their voices, really focused
Oh,
on vocal skills, as well as I had some music clients as well, because I play classical piano. So I was working with some high end vocalists and musicians that were really trying to move the needle and take them in a really a big.
yeah.
I'm not for everybody. Like I'm not for somebody. Oh, I just want to have a little fun. No, I'm a lot more focused as a coach than that. But that's what I was doing.
Okay.
So, to speak to your question, really and truly, I've always been a bit of an entrepreneur. So, I would say that I was more really that than I was a W-2
Yeah.
employee.
That's kind of what I meant by that parallel. It's so very close. So
Yes.
you were already coaching. So coming into this new role that you're playing now, can you tell us a little bit about how it's evolved for you?
Yes. Yeah. Well, as it started out, I started working with people's voices. That's
Yep.
really what I
Yep.
did. And I still do that. I still get a lot of calls for that because there's this big parallel between the warm-ups that we do as singers and the warm-ups and how people should use their voice as speakers, whether they're live or podcasting or whatever that may be, because you have to take care of your voice, and
Sure.
it's something people don't think about it until all of a sudden they're hoarse all the time or they're tired when they speak. And so that's how it started. But what I started to see happening when I was working with people just vocally, and I was working very closely with them, I started seeing transformations in other ways. So this vocal work that I was doing I was starting to see patterns of growth and self-confidence emerge. And um, so there was more to it than that. So I really started studying it a little bit and realized that more than just a vocal coach, really and truly, I am a confidence coach, is what I am. I just use your voice as a way to get you where you want to be.
I
So
love that.
I help people be bold, confident, powerful. And if they want to get up and they want to use their voice, they have a message to share with the world, then to show them how they can do it with self-esteem and confidence so they can be recognized for that person who they really are. Like
Right.
show your true colors. I help people find their skills. And so this was what I was seeing happening. And I was kind of blown away with it myself because that's not how it started. But I just started seeing these butterflies emerge from a cocoon. And I was like, wait a minute, is this? And they would come back and go, this whole thing, like, this is who I am. I have my tribe now. I have a whole new lane of I'm in a band now, or I'm speaking full time, or I just got a client a month now that's working with me
Wow.
because of the things I've been doing. So those are just a few examples of what I'm talking about. And so in the beginning, I was like, wow.
This is
So
a whole new skill. Like teaching somebody to be confident, that's probably not easy, I would imagine.
well, but it's what I was doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's what I was doing. It was just the method I was using to do it. And the method I was using was teaching people how to use their voice, how
So,
to use it in a way that really speaks A, to who they are. All right. And then B, not just to who they are, but taking that who they are and putting it out in the world.
yeah.
Because you might be in touch with who you are all day long, but if no one else sees it, then and you're not speaking your truth out loud because you're too afraid, or you're
Yeah.
just shy, or whatever, you have fear. Yeah, then you're not going to move the needle forward. And so
Right.
when I started helping people do that, I just realized that the strides that they were making and the changes that were happening in their own lives. And so that's how I have evolved as a coach. That's been my journey, and that's where I am now. So
I love that so much. Now, I have so many questions about everything you just said. So, but the first one I want to ask you is, do you teach them through song, or is it purely through speaking that you
it
help them
depends
become?
on the oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt
Oh,
you
no, no,
there.
no, that's okay. I'm wondering, do you do both? It just depends on the person.
It depends on the individual. I have some and a lot of it crosses over is what I've found. So I have some people that come to me that they are television show hosts and they want to improve their skills. They want to take it up a notch,
Yeah.
right? They want to leap it up. Um and I can help them do that. They're not really a singer, but inevitably it's really funny. They always go, if I could only sing. And I'll say, well, let's do a vocal exercise. Let's do a singing vocal exercise. So every now and then I'll throw one in there for us because the techniques are similar. The techniques are similar. And
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
really good time because singing different words allows you to express yourself emotionally in ways that just talking it out does not. So, but it's up to, if there is only a speaker, there's no pressure there to sing it. We can work the vocal exercises in one way. If you are a singer or have ever desired to sing, then we can pull out those exercises and use those as well. So I
I
have
love
a
that.
lot of tricks up my sleeve to get people where they need to be.
Right? Oh, that's so great. So I'm guessing now you're probably doing a lot of public speaking as well, right? Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So talk to me about, and I talk about this a lot, but I can't wait to get your perspective. The difference between being cast in a role and being playing a character, being protected by that fourth wall, and then now speaking publicly to a group of people that are looking right at you. What? Talk to me about the difference, because to me, I can knock it out on stage all day long as a character, but speaking myself, it makes me nervous.
Okay. Yeah. Let me tell you, this is something that you brought this up because it's something I talk about quite often. And
Oh,
I'm
no
going
kidding.
to an example, and I've seen it over and over again when in musical theater, not necessarily circus. Musical theater is its own kind of genre.
Right.
So a lot of musical theater performers go cabaret. They do what we call cabaret. So that means they'll sit on a stool and weave a story and sing their own songs.
Mm-hmm.
They can't make the transition because in a show, you do have the fourth wall and you are being someone else. So when you are required to come out of that, put yourself on a stage, it's a lot more vulnerable, a lot more it needs to be successful, authentic. You have to be authentic. So when you are being authentic, you're putting yourself out there for criticism, right?
Mm-hmm.
So people don't want to do it, A, and B, some people can't because they don't know who they are. So they could be another character, but when you put them over here, they don't know how to be themselves. So it's been very interesting to me. It's different training. And this is where my specialty comes in because I can help people identify. One of my strengths is really helping them identify what their strengths are. All right. And some people's strengths are being a different character, right?
Yeah.
But people's strengths, they have this genuineness about them that they need to pull forward. They have this quality about them that people need to hear, that people need to see, and they don't know how to bring it out of them. And so, it's two separate tracks, if you will, right?
Yeah.
But again, it's just like the singer, the speaker, two separate tracks.
Mm-hmm.
So much overlap in between the two that a lot of the training is similar. It's understanding who your audience is and what you're doing that makes the difference in how you execute it.
Okay. Wow. That is so interesting. So now to take it one step deeper, do you help, say the person comes to you and really has no sense of self, doesn't know who they are? Can you help with that as well? Or is that a little too...
No. Yes, I can do that. No,
it's amazing.
It's not too much. No, I actually enjoy, it's one of the joys of what I do. It's one of my biggest pleasures because is the differences in people. Yeah. And I love it. I really like getting in there and playing around with it and seeing where people's strengths are. Because everybody's a little different. So seeing what makes somebody special, because everyone has a quality, everybody has a uniqueness, and everybody has challenges, and they're all going to be different. So the object is to put those strengths forward and bring the challenges backwards, right?
Yeah.
But you don't know what they are unless you have somebody help you and tell you, because quite often when you're on stage, what you think you're doing is really not what you should be doing.
Yeah. Right. That it's fascinating to me that you have that ability to help people through that. So let me ask you this. You were talking earlier that people have their message and they want to get it out to the world, right? So right. What if somebody came to you and said, I really want to speak on stage, but really didn't have a message yet? Can you help them with that too?
That's one part of what I do with speakers. The speaker track that I work with is that I can help them create their messaging. And I have some formulas that I work with, things that are tried and true. And then what we do is take your uniqueness and fill in the blanks. So even though there's a formula over here, it's not going to be like everybody else, as long as you are being true to yourself and that we find those things to fill in the blanks with. And once you start doing that, then you start seeing your own program emerge and your own brand and your own persona and your own power. This is where power comes from. Power, it's having that uniqueness and standing in it.
Wow. Okay. And can you give an example of maybe a success story that you've had?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, good. Yes. I want to hear about somebody that was so nervous in the beginning.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll talk about one. This one particular person is a singer and a speaker. They do both.
Okay.
Okay. Um, when I first started working with her, she had such extreme fear of speaking. And speaking, 15 million people a day come across a fear when they have to talk. This is the statistic. There are somewhere out there in this, there are 15 million people that are having to speak today that have a fear, some kind of fear, some way that they have to overcome. Just maybe butterflies, but whatever, right?
Wow.
This particular person had paralyzing fear, though, not just
Uh,
butterflies.
right.
So
Right.
when it came time for her to walk out onto the stage, she would know where to be found. I
Oh
would have
God.
to hunt her down.
Oh God.
She would be in the bathroom, usually crying.
Oh, poor thing. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
So for someone who has a natural ability just to talk, whatever, it just is like you're like looking at this person going, "What's wrong with you?" But you know, but she wanted to do it. Now here's where the passion to do it and the motivation to do it was there, but the fear was greater than the motivation at that point. And
That's
what
sad.
had to
Yeah.
switch we had to switch that motivation a little bit and make it greater than the fear itself. And we did. Took a little time, but I'm telling you right now that now this person is singing. She sings in a band. She just stood up on one of the biggest stages in Georgia talking about the American Heart Association, who she is kind of
Oh, nice.
yeah, it's just it blows my mind.
How
Really.
fulfilling that must be for you to just
Yes.
see them bloom like that.
Yes. Yeah, I never, I'm always surprised because everyone, like I say, everybody's different. So
Sure.
it manifests itself in different ways for every person. But when I have a speaking client, she was a television show host. She had her own TV show, but she said, I gotta up level. I want to play with the big boys. I really got to take this up a notch. I said, all right, well, let's work. And we started working, and now I go in and I look, and she's a monitor in some networking groups. Like she handles it's unbelievable. She's like 32nd, like the things that she's initiated in the group. She's so strong on camera now. And I just look at her and I just, I'm just so proud. I'm just so proud that she's gone from this, like, I don't know
Oh,
what to do, to like this powerful presence,
oh,
not
wow.
egotistical, not arrogant, just powerful because she's confident in her abilities and her
Yeah.
message and her messaging. She knows what her message is. She knows who she's out there to help, and she stands in her power and does it in a
Oh,
very, very bold way. And yes.
that's amazing. I love that so much. I just love hearing about that. That's so cool and so rewarding. So let me ask you, because you just mentioned TV host, so it made me think, do you have on-camera experience as well in your performance history or?
Well, yeah, but it's not because I was an anchor or a journalist. Okay, let me be clear about that.
Okay.
The on-camera experience that I have actually would be doing media for Cirque, because we would get called out. And I have a funny story with that. I did
Yeah.
the when I was in Alaska, I was doing yeah, I've done shows in Alaska. So I was there for, I don't know, 2 weeks or something like that. And I got called by the local news, and I came in to do the weather. I had to give the weather. And it was so funny because I guess one of our performers was watching. They were like, "You were on the weather this morning?" I was like, "You never know."
Were you in costume or just as yourself?
No, I actually did it as myself. So yeah. So
That that's hard if you've never done it before, I bet, right? Because you get that green screen behind you.
yeah. Oh yeah, I had the green screen. It was fun though. I just had a good time with it. And then everybody was laughing because I was like the weather girl for a day. I mean, it's not too hard to do it in Alaska. It's cold. So there you go.
I've never been to I've been to all 50 states. I'm not all 50 states, 49 states. I've never been to Alaska.
You should go.
Was
It's
it was it
yeah.
dark? Is it true
When
that it's dark?
I
Like,
was there at the end of winter. I was there in April. and what the end of winter means. So in April, where it's getting warm everywhere else, end of winter means 20 degrees there.
Yes,
It was
right.
in the 20s. There was still ice and snow everywhere, but it was, like I said, it was in the 20s. We went 9 hours north up to Fairbanks,
Oh,
and
okay.
we were in a blizzard up there. But what end of winter means, as far as light, is that, and this threw everybody for a loop. It was really funny because we would perform and we would get out of a show at, say, we get done with our show at, say, 10 o'clock at night, and then out of makeup, out of costume. It's 10:30. We're walking out and it's still light out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How weird
And
is
that
that?
was weird. And because they weren't even getting in the full summer season yet. They were just going into it, and it was still light out. So our clocks were all missed.
I bet. I
We
bet.
were like staying out all night because we didn't know what time. Like we were so messed up time wise, but yeah, it was fun. But it
Yeah.
was
I
fun.
want to ask you, you just said something that made me think of a question I want to ask you. That's so coming from a touring life. Let me ask you first, what percentage of your career were you touring versus being stationary for more than a month, say?
Oh, I was on the road for a good 5, 6 years
Yeah.
straight.
Okay. Yeah. So what was that transition like living on the road to now being in one place? Because I will tell you, it's been it's been 10 years since I've toured. And every night I dream about I'm in a hotel, I'm in an airport, I'm late for the bus, I'm packing, I can't get my suitcase together. Did you go experience any of that?
Um, well, wouldn't say I experienced it just as how you just described it in that sense.
Mhm.
It was hard at first because you got to reintegrate yourself into normal society. So
Right.
like you're living a parallel life.
In a little bubble, a hotel bubble.
Yeah, that seems real, but it's not. And then there's real life going alongside over here. So there's some adjustment that has to be done, and it kind of works on your head a little bit too. So it's a little, it can kind of mess you up a little bit if you're not careful. But for me, how it's manifested is that I just like to travel. And if I'm in one place too long, yeah, I don't mind having a home base, but if I'm in one place too long, I get antsy
Yeah.
and I get depressed and I have to move. So travel is a very important part of my life. And that's why my company now is global. So I have clients in Canada, in the US,
Oh, really?
I've worked with people in Mongolia and Bali. Yeah. So I'm international. And that's the reason is because, yeah, I mean,
So
it's a important part of
you're
life.
talking international, like in person, you fly out to them,
Uh,
or
I have. I,
wow,
yeah, not always. I don't want
right?
to say that that's what I do always, but yeah, it is part of but yes,
Wow, that's
I
great.
travel.
That's
Yeah.
that. It's great that you still have the ability to do so much traveling too. You're not stuck. Being where you are now gives you that opportunity to still do some traveling. So that's
Yeah, it does. It does, and probably even more so in the next year or two. I'm looking forward to it. So,
yeah, and I want to ask you about that. But first, I want to go back a little bit to little Julia. You said you started earlier. You mentioned you started singing when you were 2, right? How did you realize, hey, this is something I'm really good at? And what kind of were you performing at 2 or like at a young age like that? Or how did that work?
well, first of all, I come from a family of musicians. My grandmother on my dad's side had 13 brothers and sisters. Every single one of them played a musical instrument and
Oh,
sang.
really?
My mother's side, and understanding growing up in the South, you grow up in the Bible Belt. Church is a very important part of your life. And, a lot of great performers got their start in church. Whitney Houston started out there, Dionne
Mhm.
Warwick, a lot of these people. So my first performance was 2 years old in church. My mom had her own family quartet when she was growing up, and she's a writer. So music, it was it just was something I was sort of born into, like, not that necessarily pushed as a career. Actually, my parents were like, you have to get a real degree. Hold up. Not that music's not a real degree. They
No.
wanted me to get, a business career. They wanted to make sure I had a career, but they were like, uh, you're going to take piano lessons. And I wasn't very disciplined when I was young. I'll just go ahead and admit. And parents that might be listening that have kids, I didn't practice. I didn't want to practice. I didn't have the patience to practice piano. It's focus. And I was too busy like doing everything else. So, but my parents were like, if you want to take dance, you got to take piano.
Ah,
So, which was brilliant on my parents' part, because, it's made me a living at this point.
yes.
So, I've told you about the evolution of it,
Yeah.
but the fact that my parents were so supportive of music in my life, and the people that I've worked with that are musicians, that's a common thread. There is a parent or parents that are very focused on making sure that they have a musical education, whether or not they go professional is not the point. It's that they have the background to have some music in their life.
Right, right, right. Yeah.
So,
Well, that
and
would
it's important education, because music does things for a young brain that nothing else can do. It builds neurons that no other.
that's interesting. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Well, yeah, there's neurons because music lights up all 12 centers of the brain in singing. It's one of the only things that does it, because it requires for lack of it, I know this left brain, right brain thing, whatever. Okay. But the linear side of our thought processes
Mhm.
requires us to think, because it's mathematical. The rhythms are mathematical. All right. So that there is a lot of linear style thinking with it. On the flip side of that, it's emotional. It's emotive. This is how you can express yourself, emotions. It's a form of expression, and it's also a form of bringing people together in connection. And I can go on and on and on about this. Okay. But music is also physical. It's used for therapies. They used it to treat long COVID patients, singing, and it worked. Breath,
Really?
because of the breath that's required. It is a physical activity. So yes,
Right.
it's very, very important. So it's an important part of education growing up.
Yeah.
I'm a big proponent of it for education.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome. And thankfully, I know I was one that even in early education, music was very taken very seriously in the school system that I was in. There was a lot of musical education available. So and that's probably why. But
Right.
that's really interesting. Yeah. And it's funny what you said about it's a physical thing, because I think people if somebody isn't a singer, I don't think they understand that for me, and I'm not really a singer. I can pretend like I sing. I get by. But it doesn't come natural to me like it does to people who are born with that talent. And so for me, when you say physical, I actually had to, because I'm a dancer, right? So I had to almost choreograph the song, like where I would put each word. Does that make sense? Like I would put it one word here, and then I would have to like take a little breath here, and then the other word would go here. I don't know if that makes any sense to you.
It makes a lot of sense, and actually, it's not a bad way to learn music, because and I would like to add that that's fairly mathematical of you, because you have different placements and different levels of where you're putting things and compartmentalization. I
Yeah.
just want to point that out. But and on that note, I'm going to tell you something that's very interesting. and this is not scientific, so let me just
Okay.
say that. I don't have percentages on this. This is a self-analysis that I've just noticed through the years. If you go to see out to a restaurant or a bar, you see a band moonlighting, a band's out there playing,
Yeah.
and just the musicians play because they love to play. Ask them what they do for a day job if they're not professional musicians, right? And a lot of them, at least one in a band will tell you that they're engineers.
That's funny because I sang in a band and my guitar player was an engineer.
Ah, there you go. Right? It's the truth because of the correlation between mathematics and music.
That is so fascinating.
It's
And that's
true.
exactly what you hit the nail on the head. I didn't explain it quite right, but when you said placements, like where am I gonna, is this note gonna be in my head voice, in my mix? You know, where yeah.
That's
So
exactly
that's
right.
yeah.
And that's actually an advanced technique. I'll give you a little tip today. That's an advanced musical technique. So you might be better at singing than you think you are, because that's an
Wow.
advanced technique that a lot of people don't. It's very hard to comprehend that, and it's even harder to execute. You might understand it, but theoretically, but to be able to do it because everything's so abstract.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you for that compliment. I had no idea, but it really helped me. It really did. Like as long as I knew where everything went, I could sing the song great.
You're choosing how to hit notes. That's what I say. Don't let those notes choose you. You choose the notes.
I
So
love that. Oh, I love that. Well, okay, we're getting close to the end here, but what I do every podcast episode is I fire off a few random questions at the end of our time, and
okay.
just to see what you say. So my first question is, if given the opportunity to walk on the moon, would you?
Yeah, I would do
Did
it.
you really?
Well, yeah, because it expands it. First of all, I love science. I was a chemistry major when I first started out, so that's not a stretch for me. I love to learn. So,
Yeah. Okay.
and
Um,
I'm an explorer adventurer. So,
there you go.
yeah.
Okay. All right. Next one. If you could have dinner with one person in the world, alive or dead, who would it be?
Right now, I have to tell you, I would have a dinner with Jordan Peterson. I don't know if you know who Jordan Peterson.
No.
He is a clinical psychiatrist who works for the University of Toronto. He just the way this guy thinks. I just think I would just sit there and watch him in awe, and the way he handles interview questions. I mean, it's brute. He's
Deep?
yes, and brilliant. Like he's really brilliant. He's not afraid to speak the truth, but he can like debate. I can't even like he's so good in a debate. I'm like, I would just want to sit it. I want to carry his briefcase for a while and learn his method.
What's his name again? Jordan.
Jordan Peterson. He's
I'm
Canadian.
gonna.
He's pretty hot right now. Yeah, you should check him out. And a lot of people don't like his views. That's not. This isn't what I'm talking about. What
Yeah.
I'm talking about is his skill is like
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting.
that articulate.
Yeah.
And, it's like, oh my God, this guy is. Anyway, yeah.
Okay, cool. I'm gonna check him out. And then lastly, what book has inspired you most? Not necessarily, it doesn't have to be about business or career, but any book.
Oh, that's a interesting question.
This is
Uh,
how I make my book list.
there was a book called The Night Circus, and it's not about business.
No.
It's really not about self-development or anything like that. It's just pure magic, and it's elegant. The book is elegant, and I like it because it's about elegance, the circus, and a love story and magic. That's the best way I know to put it. Just throw all those together. And I just like the elegance of it. It's
Okay. The Midnight Circus, you said?
the night circus.
Oh, the Night Circus. Okay, awesome. All right. All right, then. And lastly, Julia, what is next for you? I hear you have a big launch coming up. Is that
I
right?
do. I'm so excited. We'll be launching the week of this month. It'll be the week of May 13th. I have a launch, a new program that's coming out, 6 weeks to confidence and power on the stage. And I'll be coming out with that program. It'll be opening up on May 15th, actually, and people can join this program and really step into the first level of moving the needle for themselves if they really want to get out there and make a difference in their speaking, in their stage presence. So it's about persona, it's about getting your messaging, nailing that messaging, and ultimately increasing your authority and your profits, increasing your bottom line.
Wow. Well, that sounds exciting. And
Yeah.
so I'll put it in the show notes, but make sure, do you have a link for that yet to check it?
I do. Well, what I do have is a link, and if you go to my website, which is julialangley.com, you can get that. That's a way to get on my email list, and you're going to get all of that information will come directly to you through that. We will be sending that out very soon, and you'll be
All
able to
right.
get that.
Fantastic. And then there's a little present you have, right, that you offer to the
I
audience?
I do. It's 7 ways, well, 7 mistakes that speakers make. 7 mistakes that speakers make when they're about to take the stage, and that can cost them, all right, and keep people from actually paying attention to them and taking them seriously on the stage.
Oh, that's
So
great. That's great. Okay, so I will put the link to this in the show notes. So if you're listening and that sounds like something you might need help with, then check out the show notes and accept Julia's gift.
I'd be happy to do that for you. Yeah. And anybody that wants to know more about it or to take a deeper dive into talking about the stage work and just being more confident and overcoming fear, then, please feel free to get in touch with me and contact me. And I'd love to hear from you.
Awesome. Awesome. Julia, I could probably talk to you for hours. This has been so great. Thank you so much for coming on.
Well, thank you for having me. I've thoroughly enjoyed it.
And I'm looking forward to your new launch.
Thank you.
Okay, bye, everybody.